The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, UNU Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to All You Can Eat. It's the podcast about deliciousness, and I'm your host, Rob Rosenthal, coming to you with episode number 103 of All You Can Eat, live from Miami Beach, Florida. And excited to bring you two guests this evening to talk about wine and to talk about spices, subjects both of which I find fascinating. We have a conversation here with Joshua Greenstein. He's the EVP of Sales and Marketing for the Israeli Wine Producers Association. And we have Lior Lev Sercarz. He's the Chief Culinary Officer and co-founder of the Galilee Culinary Institute by the Jewish National Fund. Terrific guys, experts in their field. Without further ado, my conversation here with first with Josh Greenstein, and then I'll be back with you to introduce Lior Lev Sercarz. Hey, welcome to All You Can Eat. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Generally excellent. As you can tell from the hesitation, I'm one of those people that thinks about it before I just blurt out stuff. For everybody, this has been a complicated, challenging time to say the least. But I'm in good. If you have your health at this point, you know what I mean, and if the people around you are healthy, you kind of have not reason to complain. How about yourself?
Not too bad. The family's all around me. My son is in school full time for the most part.
Nice.
So that's a positive thing, and we're doing our thing.
Super. Let me ask you this: where are you?
I'm located in Westchester. I'm in Armonk, New York.
Isn't that funny that you're in Armonk? Because in the small world of things, I was sitting outside last night in Miami Beach, Florida.
Okay.
Having a proper martini. And a guy passes by. He's friendly with the people that I am having drinks with. And he's from, he lives in Brewster, but he's from Armonk. And I said, oh, that's funny because when I was a kid, I used to go with my father pretty much every weekend for 4 or 5 years to the Armonk Tennis Club.
Yeah.
So there you go.
It's right next to my kid's school now, right there.
It's just, it's the whole small world of it. Armonk hasn't come into my consciousness for a decade. And then within 12 hours, here it is twice. And there you are.
And you know what sport I'm playing now? I'm playing paddle tennis outside.
Paddle tennis is a very interesting sport for me. Apparently, you're the only one in America not playing pickleball right now.
That's what it is. Paddle tennis, pickleball. I think it's the same, right?
I think that technically speaking, they're two different sports. Like paddle tennis, I get you're probably playing with a tennis ball.
It's like a hard Nerf. It's outside on the heated court on that hard Nerf lacrosse ball meets. I don't know what it is. It's an interesting ball. But
you would know and the rackets are small like paddle rackets.
Correct.
You would know if you were playing pickleball. Right. So there's a difference. But anyway,
I played tennis my whole life. So I played college tennis, and then I recently just got into this sport because everyone else did.
Let's do this because I always like to start from the beginning. Tell the people who you are and what you do. And then the next question I'll ask you after that is, how did you go from playing tennis in college to selling and marketing Israeli wine?
Perfect. All right. Well, my name is Joshua Greenstein, and just a quick about me. Fifth generation wine business. My family's been in the business for a long time during Prohibition. My dad's still in the business upstate New York and Albany. I got a brother in the business in Brooklyn. I worked for Gallo. I worked for Yellowtail. And for about 12 years now, I've been representing Brand Israel in the wine business.
Sweet. So that answers how you got into that business. Now,
had to.
5 generations. That's pretty impressive. So my confession to you, Joshua, is that do people call you Joshua or Josh or both?
Either or works.
Same here, Rob or Robert. I normally, if you go into when you're me and you go into these type of things, and I don't ever look at it as an interview. It's a conversation. I'm interested in what you do. So the people that are listening to us. Normally, I would do a certain amount of due diligence or homework or whatever. I decided, and not to be lazy, but I decided to come to it relatively naive because I want to learn. I want to understand Israeli wine. I tell you that in this context. I've obviously had wine, as have many people from California, from Long Island, Italy, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, South Africa, Australia. I did a whole tour and wrote about the wines of Umbria. Israeli wine, as you know, is kind of like, where is that coming from? In other words, it's not, you don't automatically connect wine and Israel. And in fact, I was never a great student, but I do know enough to know that one of Israel's kind of growing regions is the Negev, which to me always translated into desert. So tell me, what's Israeli wine? It probably goes back thousands of years, the history, but how did it come to be? What's going on? What should people know about Israeli wine?
Well, the beautiful part about, like, as you travel to Israel, there's just so much going on over there also. It's rich in history. You can be in the old 5,000-year-old streets, and then the next day you could be in the middle of a tech center and designing something.
Sure.
And the wine business is very similar. They've been doing it for about 5,000 years.
Right.
And the joke I say to people is they've been doing it for about 5,000 years, but they just got recognized for being good at it. It took a lot of time, a lot of practice, but they're at the point now where we have, in the past 10 years, we've gotten 200 plus 90 points from Robert Parker, Wine Enthusiast and Spectator.
Nice.
Like it's become a real wine growing region. And you notice when I said they just got recognized for being good at it,
yep.
They were always good at it because, like wineries here, like Sagot Winery. I have a coin from 66 CE. This is the actual coin that they had in the cave. They have replicas on all the bottles, but coins were like this were found in these caves from 66 CE, showing that they were exporting wine. People were coming and buying and selling wine back then from Rome, from wherever they were coming in. So that shows that it was good enough wine where people were coming to get it. Now it's at the point where people are looking for it.
So again, we're in the Middle East. The Negev does obviously is desert. So what are the regions there, and what are the growing conditions like?
Well, the beautiful part about Israel, I've been trapped in these little boxes a lot these days. Like most of us.
Right.
And I've been learning so much more. Listen, I've been doing this for 12 years with Israel, but I'm learning so much more recently because of all the conversations and topics that we're having with people. And I recently had a call with Assam about the growing in Israel. And one of the winemakers was on the call, and they said, what's really amazing? Like you said before, you've been to Italy, you've been to France, been all these places, and you've been to the middle of the vineyards. And when you go to Israel and you look at their vineyards there could be a row of Cabernet,
mm-hmm.
a row of Sauvignon Blanc, a row of mangoes, avocado trees, all in this little plot of land. Why? Because they have the technology, they've used it, they're embracing it. And the soil types, you'll notice behind me, these are just 7 different soil types from you'll find throughout the country. It's all over the place. And then you ask about the Negev, which is the craziest part about it. The process of drip irrigation was founded in Israel. Now you said you're in South Florida. I bet you go to any Publix, and in the parking lot next to the flower beds are those little hoses with drip irrigation in it. It's all over the world now. And that was founded in Israel to help everything.
Look, I'm not. Look, it's no surprise to me when you hear that the Israelis are doing something that's advanced, especially when it comes to any kind of technology. And obviously, Israelis have been drinking wine for a very long time. What are the varietals that we're talking about? Like, kind of if not the most popular or the most common, the ones that the Parker people are rating high. What are the kind of key varietals that we're drinking out of Israel?
So, like I said, what happened was in the late 1800s, the Rothschild family, the famous Rothschild family, came over to Israel. They partnered up with all the farmers and all the people in the country, and they wanted to give back because, they felt they spent a ton of money on their winery in France, their chateau, and now they moved to Israel. And they said, hey, we need to do something here. So they brought off all their knowledge and all their everything, and they brought a lot of their clones with them. So they were Bordeaux varietals primarily then.
Right.
And they brought them to Israel to help grow and build the land, which is now Carmel Winery, which is the one he started. But today, they're trying everything. You're seeing a lot of, Cab is still king, no matter where you are in the world. Cabernet is still number one varietal there is, but we're experimenting. We're trying new things. They're using funky Mediterranean, some Carignan, some Petit Verdot they're trying. They're trying everything, and they're seeing what works and what the consumer works. And, and remember, when they try it, it's a 4 to 6 year test. Let's plant the grapes. Let's see what happens. Let's put it into tanks. Let's put it into barrels. Let's put it into the bottle. It's a long process, but they're trying and they're seeing really what's working. And we're starting to realize that a lot more of these Mediterranean grapes are really starting to grow well over there. And also what's really working, white wine. We'll get to that when we're talking about some of the wines we're going to be tasting later. It's amazing to see what white wine has done in the country. In Israel, because the joke I make is they just realized that it was warm there. No, it's white wine is like growing like this, and rosé is growing like this,
right.
And people are enjoying it.
So I guess the question then, from a consumer standpoint, if you were going to, again, because of the lack of instant familiarity with Israeli wines, for people that are into wine and they go, hey, you know what, I want to try this Israeli wine, I hear it's great. What are, and I leave it up to you whether or not you want to do it on the basis of kind of a varietal or a brand or a specific, but what are some of the wines that names that people kind of should look for when they, either when we're released out into the public to buy things again in person, or that we can order online? What are some of the things that we want to be looking for from Israel?
Well, like I said, it's all preference. Also, it's all about the people say to me, "Hey, Josh, what are you drinking? What should I drink?" Well, where are you? What are you doing? There's so many variables to wine, So it's so situational to people. But now there's a lot more big name stores starting to get behind the brand. Total Wine, which is a big, huge retailers behind the wine. Small retailers that we're working with all over the country are starting to realize that Israel's making great wine. So you're starting to see not just one, not just two, but anything from Israel is cool to try because it's your vacation. It's your getaway. When you open that bottle of Italy, you're in Tuscany, and I'm there for a little bit, and I'm making some food, and I'm in the Tuscany moment. You want to go visit Israel, you pop it up a bottle of wine, and you could be there. But varietal wise, it's just find what you like, surf the net, and you can find a ton of cool stuff. And then back to the small retailers for a moment. Guys like the stores here in New Jersey that are helping us and doing stuff. They are now having sections that are dedicated to Israel, where they're actually promoting the brands as Israel do. And it's just beautiful to see that Israel could finally get its name written up on the sections in these retail shops.
That's very good, and glad to hear it. And by the way, funny and happy that you mentioned Total Wine, because I didn't discover Total Wine myself. As a guy that's a food guy, it was only recently that I discovered Total Wine, and I was blown away because I do, or at least pre-pandemic, I would be in Costco essentially every week of my life. I am literally the Costco hoe. So when I found Total Wine, I was in heaven. I mean, this is like the Costco Home Depot of wine. That place was crazy deep. I didn't happen to see an Israeli, but you know what? Next time I go pop right into the Israeli section. I grab a bottle of Cab because it's Cab, and then I look for something. I look for something that's white. Some
great Sauvignon Blancs.
Sauvignon Blancs.
Chardonnay. Chardonnay is a great grape over there, and it's there, like I said, when you have so many different soil types and so many different terroirs, it really likes to explore the whole country. Listen, it's a small country. Let's be honest; it's the size of New Jersey approximately.
Correct.
So, if wineries want to try, the wineries up here, but they want to try some grapes from down there, it's only an hour drive or a 2 hour drive.
Right. Hey, on the subject of this, do you have a feeling about wine pairing in general?
Yeah, wine pairings in general, it's important. It's important to have your foods match what you're eating or what you're doing or the situation, because a wine pairing is not just for food; it's for situations just as much.
Sure.
Someone says, I'm having a big steak for dinner tonight. All I can have is a big Cabernet. I say, no, that's not true. What's
Right.
going to happen for like the hour that you're cooking? What are you going to be doing? You know what you do? You open a great white wine because you're outside. It's beautiful out there in South Florida. I'm freezing with 4 feet of snow in front of me in New York. And you're sipping your Sauvignon Blanc while you're grilling your steak. It's a beautiful. And then you put the cork back in the bottle. You stick it in the fridge for 2 to 3 days. Maybe you'll get out of it. And you open your red. So I think that's important too.
I'm going to have to take issue with you here because while I'm cooking, I'm having the martini. Now,
okay.
But
that works too. You're just building up. You're just building it up here.
I'm working my way up or down. Now, what I would, speaking of pairing though, if you think about some of the kind of traditional or classic Israeli foods, mm-hmm. This is just a game I'm playing with. This is what I like to do. Take a classic kind of Israeli food or a dish that people would be familiar with, and tell me what to pair it with. What's like a classic kind of lovely Israeli pairing?
Maybe like a nice falafel or some nice falafel to start with a little fresh vegetables and fresh dish. So for me, I would start with a nice Sauvignon Blanc. Personally, right. I like a nice unoaked, something easy, something clean, right. Something fresh, just to open my palate and let me taste the garden, taste what all these freshness from all these fruits and vegetables and then I'm putting into my mouth, and let the wine help it and pair right next to it. But again, as I get to the next course, I'm not sticking with that wine. I'm opening different wines as I go throughout my meal usually, because it's more fun that way.
Well, for sure, but not all of us are in the wine business, Joshua.
No, but see, that's the beauty. Also, there's also a thing called half bottles. You could open up half bottles, and you need to understand, for the event that I'm doing coming up soon with the Jewish National Fund USA, a beautiful thing that I'm doing with them is we're opening up 3 different bottles of wine. But I tell people, first of all, if you finish all 3 in the night, good for you. You had a great evening, and I'm proud of you. But if you don't finish them all, it's okay. They last a couple more days after. And we explain how to store them and just to make sure that they're put away and, stuff like that.
All right, let's get to it. The Jewish National Fund USA Taste of Israel wine tasting event that you are going to be at and kind of running. Let us tell people about the event, because I know it's upcoming, number one. I know that there is wine involved and wine tasting involved, number 2. I know that is you don't have to be there in person, that you can attend virtually, which I will be. And so it sounds awesome. Tell us what we need to know, and then we'll tell people how they can kind of, sign up for it.
Great. My job before I was sitting in my comfortable desk chair, at home and able to do what I got to do. The wife calls me downstairs. I need to help with the dog or something. We're here. It's crazy. But I've done so many events like this, a lot with the JNF, which is a great partner to work with, because people want to be home doing something fun. If you're stuck on 2-3 Zooms a day, let's just say we all are for something. Right. At the end of the day, you're tired. You want to sit on the couch and do this. But what's kind of cool? Instead of watching TV, you're watching this, you're watching that, and you're learning, and you're tasting, and you're drinking. So it's a beautiful. I've had the opportunity to get to front of some people that may not have ever done this before, or may not have wanted to go to the event in New York City and go to the Upper East Side event and see the beautiful JNF house. And now they're sitting at home and they're comfortable of wearing their shirt with their pajamas on the bottom and still drinking 3 great wines. So at this event that we're doing here with started out doing an event in New Jersey, and it's just expanding now all over the country. That's the beauty. There's no more localized. Everybody's localized. You're in Miami, you're away. You want to come? Let's go. It's you might not get the frequent flyer miles, but you'll enjoy the night.
That's for sure. So
I've done a bunch of events like this.
Well, tell everybody what the deal is. So basically, you kind of register, you log on, and you're going to be doing what and sampling what. How's it going to play? How does this thing go down?
So we're going to be tasting 3 different wines from Israel. All are going to be from Israel, from 3 different wineries. We got the great Flam winery. We're going to be tasting their white wine, the Flam Blanc, which is a beautiful unoaked Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc blend. It's beautiful wine, clean, fresh. Something like that is how I start. Pre-cooking, pre-ready. Let's go. We're ready to go. Maybe save a little bit for the first dish, and then we'll transition. Next, we have a great Pinot Noir from Seagal. And what's really cool about Seagal, just from geeky wine perspective. Master of Wines. There's not many Master of Wines in the world. I think there's under 400 in the world. Ido Levinson, the winemaker at Seagal, just became the Master of Wine. He's the second in Israel. He's there's not many out there. It's a very, very, very difficult class, and he's doing some cool stuff. So you'll notice it says whole cluster, and I'll explain more about whole cluster throughout the evening that night. But there's just really cool techie things he's doing with wines and producing some really cool stuff. So that's going to be the Pinot Noir. And the last one we're going to be tasting is from Covenant, the Blue Sea. And what's beautiful about Covenant is it's just a fun story because Jeff Morgan is one of the few winemakers that has wineries in Israel and the U.S. So he's got the amazing ability to be able to jump really far away and have fun between two really spread out vineyards.
What kind of wine is that one?
That's going to be a blend from Jeff.
And so basically, just to make sure that everybody is clear about this, you register for it, and then you show up. And I suppose that if you want, depending on where you are in the world, you have those wines basically shipped to your house so that we can sample along with you.
Correct. If you sign up on the website, there's more information about it. And I'm going to be pairing up with my buddy Lior Lev, who's the best, the spice chef. He's just an amazing guy. I learned so much from him. Again, every time I'm on here, I'm taking notes myself, saying, "Oh, I got that's mine for next time,"
Right.
So working with him and tasting the wine side by side with the spices and the wine is just it's fun.
I'm looking forward to it. What's the? Let's give people for who are just listening. I mean, I'll throw a website address onto a vid, but like for the people that are listening to the podcast, give me do you have the actual?
I do. It's jnf.org /
Taste of Israel.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so it's JNF, Jewish National Fund. So JNF .org / Taste of Israel. That's
and
perfect.
What's cool is if wherever you're located around the thing, if you have your friends in Jersey or you live in Jersey and you want your friend in Florida to join it, send them a package. This is a cool way. This is like a cool gift to send someone also and join them and see them on and talk about the wines. Also, one more thing I'll say is don't feel obligated to open all 3 bottles.
Right.
I've been doing this a lot now, and I tell people you can open none, you can open 1, you can open them all, but you're going to hear me and other people talk about the wines that you could revisit them later. If you don't want to open all 3, don't feel that's break it all.
I feel much better because I was obliged to open all 3. I would also say, Joshua, that another way to play this, if you're not in Jersey because you're in California and you want to join in on this thing, is to go ahead and register at your jnf.org / Taste of Israel. And if we know in advance the wines that you will be sampling, we might be able to send people to a place like Total Wine, for example, to pick up, from the Israeli section, those wines.
And there's some wine.com, Binny's if you're in Chicago. A lot of the local Israeli / kosher stores throughout your local markets carry these wines. So there's a lot of places now that are finally expanding, and Wine Searcher has them all. There's some great websites to help you find these wines also.
Hey, Joshua, what's happened during the past year in terms of due to the pandemic and the isolation, all that kind of stuff? What's happened with wine sales? I mean, obviously, on premises has been decimated. Has it compensated with the off premise? I mean, are we drinking more in the U.S.?
Yeah, we're drinking more. I believe we're drinking more, but it's also your brands that you're loyal to. It's your items that are that you're behind. Like single serving small canned products with wine or alcohol in them went through the roof. Smaller wine bottles went up big. There's a lot, certain brands that were very well respected and trusting and people bought a lot more of it. The new brands, people are trying some new stuff still. People weren't as shy to try some new stuff here and there because I think that the people that are drinking wines these days want to try new things. I think that's the beauty of wine and beer. If you're a beer drinker also, people are always trying new things. So thank God the wine sales have been still growing.
That's good. Let me shift gears here for a second before we go. And I'm going to ask you a question that is more of a personal one because my daughter is allergic to fish specifically. not seafood, literally flake, fish. Discovered recently something called isinglass. Does that sound familiar to you, isinglass?
The question you were asking was
It's about isinglass.
fish, correct?
I was asking about isinglass. Does that sound familiar to you?
I can't refer so much to isinglass. No, but I do know that what many of the wines from Israel are actually vegan, because some wines do use a fish bladder,
right,
in part of their winemaking process. I believe that's what you're talking about.
That is exactly right.
And so many of the wines, for the simple fact of kosher,
right,
which you haven't heard me mention the whole time. I don't talk about the K word in any way.
Me either.
But for that reason, it's actually many, not all of the wines from Israel or wines with a K on the back of them usually have the potential to be vegan more so than others.
Right. Okay, fine. That answers, I think, question. Okay, well, that's excellent. Well, first of all, thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time and your insight. And got to tell you, looking forward to the event. Let's plug it one more time. The Jewish National Fund of USA is doing a Taste of Israel wine, moderated by you and Lior, the spice maven. People can sign up by going to jnf.org/Taste of Israel. And then when is it? March
9th, the day before my birthday, just to remind everybody also. March 9th, the day, it's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
8 p.m. Eastern on March the 9th, ladies and gentlemen. You will be there with Joshua Greenstein, and we'll be drinking Israeli wine. And my sense is, because people do like new things, and we've had wine from so many other places around the world, I think Israeli wine is like the next big thing.
Yeah, let's go. Help me. Let's do this. Let's go tell everybody all about it.
It's a deal, my friend. Thank you for spending the time, and I'll see you on March the 9th for the Taste of Israel wine.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Joshua. That's great. I am looking forward to my Israeli wines. Next up, my conversation with Lior Lev Sercarz. Lior, I could give you, terms to describe his Galilee Culinary Institute, but he is a chef, a spice blender. He's the owner of Le Boîte, which is a biscuit and spice shop in New York City that is beautiful. Here's what you want to know about Lior. He's probably the foremost expert in the world on spices and spice blending, and a treat to speak to and learn from. Here's my conversation with Lior Lev Sercarz. Yes, sir.
Hello.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm excellent now. I'm really glad to have this opportunity to talk to you.
Oh, thank you. Same here.
That's kind. Lior Lev Sercarz, welcome to All You Can Eat. Let me start off with the obvious question. What do people call you? And I'm only asking because I had been thinking Lior, but then somewhere I saw it like Lev. What's the way you like to be addressed?
Lior, which is my first name. Lev is part of the last name, but it's confusing. There's no hyphen.
Gotcha. Well, a treat to meet you, and I say that genuinely. I get to interview and meet a lot of people, but when I saw your name flash up with the event, I said, event lovely, but you're a guy that I would really like to talk to. And part of the reason for that, just so that you know, is I actually have a professional culinary degree, and I wrote a cookbook, and the concept behind the cookbook, my formula is very user friendly. I can identify it in 6 words: most taste, fewest ingredients, least effort. And part of, for me, what makes that possible is the use of spices, particularly spice blends. It's like a cheat to have, herbs de Provence. I say it's 1 ingredient, but it's actually like a dozen. So I'm really excited to speak with the herb master himself.
Thank you.
My first thing for you is I like to start at the beginning, as I think you do as well. And the beginning is, tell the folks in some kind of abbreviated form, if you will, your background. I know that there's Israel. I sense that there's Brussels. I know that there's some culinary school. I know there's back to Israel and military service. And then there's USA and all that. Give people kind of a little insight into your background and how you got into the food, in particular the herbs and stuff.
Sure. Born and raised in the Upper Eastern Galilee in a kibbutz in Israel. Normal childhood, I think. Fast forward school and whatnot, a lot of traveling with my parents to Europe. And then military service, as most Israelis do, and followed by the traditional Israeli trip to either South America to Asia or Asia. I went to South America and really kind of rediscovered my passion for food and cooking. 3 years of cooking in Israel without any particular education. And following that, really enrolling into a culinary institute in France, the Paul Bocuse Institute. And then another 3 years of working in France. And then in 2002, a big move to New York City, joined the kitchen of Daniel Boulud, where I spent about 6 years in New York at Restaurant Daniel. And yet again, made another career change to focus on what became clearer every year is my big passion for spices and combining them with food and education and all of these great things. And for the last 15 years, this is what I do pretty much on a full-time basis. I have a company called La Boîte, where we celebrate spices from the farmer all the way through the brokers, importers, processing, packing, shipping, and bringing them to the kitchens of either professionals around the world, chefs, pastry chefs and whatnot, and thousands of home cooks who use them in their recipes on a daily basis.
Dig. Now, let me ask you a couple of geographical questions. One, where in South America did you spend time?
So I started in Central America, in Costa Rica, and then went to Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Argentina, then Brazil.
Beautiful food down there.
Amazing food. I had very little knowledge, if at all, about it. And each of those countries were just amazing for whatever reasons, but very diverse, really humbling, and connectivity to the ground, the terroir. Great experience.
Yeah, I've been down a lot, and to all of those countries as well. I spent like 7 years doing that kind of thing, not having to do with food. It was a different life, different business. But yeah, the same experience. What great food culture in all of those places. Really just fascinating, great learning experience. But I also want to bring you back to Brussels, I think, because I want you to describe your first French fry frite experience.
So we lived in Brussels for nearly 4 years. My grandfather was from Belgium, and I have Belgian nationality, and was in Antwerp probably in 78, 79, walking down the street, and my grandfather bought me a cone of French fries, of frites, pommes frites, very thick cut fries. I now know the secret, or I think I know why they tasted so good, but they were dipped in mayonnaise in a newspaper cone, and just to this date reminds one of my favorite culinary moments.
I can relate. What I wanted to I lost my train of thought, but those early oh yeah, I know what I wanted to ask you. It's a follow-up to that. It's really this. It's what are the three best foods that you can fry?
That you can fry.
Yeah, what are the three greatest fried foods?
Well, I think French fries, pommes frites, whatever you want to call them. So that would be one thing.
Yeah.
Falafel.
Okay.
Maybe unexpected, but I am Israeli after all.
Yes.
And then, oh gosh, what would be the first one? And donuts.
And donuts. Okay, I'll take those. Yeah, I'll take those. Those are good. Right. So the next question is really, it's funny for me because when I knew that I would be on with you here, it should have normally just kind of like flooded me with all kinds of questions about spices and stuff, but then they seem to me to be so obvious and so completely subjective. Like if I ask you about like, favorite this or favorite that, it's silly. It's like asking a parent for, who's their favorite child. So bear with me on some of the spice related questions that I ask you. So let me go in the interest of our listeners. Let's just do this. When it comes to kind of buying spices, right? I can go to your Le Bois online. I could go into a retail market. My question to you is, if I go retail, can I get? What's your sense of what's available just generally? Now you're an expert and you have a super high end kind of a place, but can people still go into the average supermarket and come away with decent spices?
Yes, absolutely. I think nowadays, yes, if we had this interview 10, 15 years ago, not so much. The level has dramatically improved.
Yeah.
Really exciting. I go to certain grocery stores and I'm pleasantly surprised with the attention to details, the packaging, the quality, the sourcing. So I think that there's a great movement. So you could definitely buy great spices in supermarket or specialty stores. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I hope that people come and see us, but
Of course.
I'm aware that there's other options. But yeah, absolutely.
And I guess the other aspect to that is, and again, this is one of those questions that I ask with full recognition that it can be answered 1,000 different ways, especially by someone who's an expert. But if people were going to have at home, 5 or 6 kind of like, you really have to have this in your cabinet. What are those? What are the ones that you would most recommend people always kind of have on hand fresh?
I think good salt,
Yep.
whatever that means to you.
Right.
Some form of chilies, either flakes or powdered. Cumin,
Right.
paprika, either smoked or regular.
Mm-hmm.
Cumin, salt, chilies, paprika, and the 5th, I'd probably go cinnamon.
Yeah. And that's because you use cinnamon both in sweet dishes as well as in savory. It's one of those kind of like surprise ingredients that you find in a savory that really makes a difference. What's a classic example of where you might use cinnamon in kind of a savory dish to give it a little extra, oomph?
The most obvious one will be tomato sauce.
Yeah.
Instead of putting sugar, which a lot of people do to balance off the acidity. So I just put cinnamon.
Right.
I love cinnamon and meat, lamb, of course, beef also, even with certain fish dishes. So I think that's kind of an unexpected way where people are like, oh, cinnamon is for my waffles or my pancakes.
Right.
Why would you put it on, lamb chops?
Let's go back for a second just to the notion of salt and pepper, because growing up as a kid, you went to the store to buy salt, Lior, and there was a container of iodized salt. I go into the store now, I have 200 or 300 to choose from, and it's the same thing with black pepper. It was crushed, it came in a can or whatever, and now, I mean, I don't, So here's my question to you: when it comes to salt, let's go with this. You're a guy that cooks all the time, right? Like I do, because you got family, whatever, you like cooking. What's the kind of, what salt are you using just day in, day out to kind of salt the stuff that's just kind of de rigueur, like the basic kind of, what's the basic salt for you?
I only have 2 salts in my kitchen, and
Okay.
my wife texts me 3 times a week. Do we have normal salt?
What are the 2 you have in the kitchen there?
I have gray salt,
right,
and I have fleur de sel.
Okay, right. So you're using the fleur de sel as the kind of the finishing salt.
I'm guilty also of boiling pasta water with fleur de sel, but that's just me.
Right. Of course.
Fleur de sel would be like nearly everywhere. Gray salt, mainly for blanching, heavier cooking, roasting, less for more delicate preparations.
And the gray salt that you're using kind of as the standard preparation, is it from some particular part of the, what ocean or sea? Where is that gray salt?
They're both from Brittany in France.
Right.
Yeah. High on iodine. non-refined, deep, great scent of ocean.
Oh, I like it. On this, since we're on the salt here, I shop oftentimes at Costco. I call myself, in fact, the Costco hoe, because I'm there 1 week every week of my life. I literally am like a streetwalker, and that was at least pre-pandemic. And right now they're selling enormous things of the Himalayan. Now, I got it because it's fine, but people I think are a little carried away. Is there anything particularly special about pink Himalayan salt?
It's a good salt. I never became part of the movement. I like it. I think it's good. I think it's worth. I think the bottom line is that it's great that we have variety.
Yes.
And I think it's up to the consumer to educate in terms of what's good for them, because what's good for you and I doesn't mean that it's good for others. So I think it's a journey you do on your own.
I'm with you on that. Speaking of the journey and black pepper, I go in now and there's Telecherry and there's some Malabar and there's some Sarawak. What kind of black pepper do you like?
I like them all, and I usually make a little mix of all of them.
Nice.
And so that they each deliver some of their characters. But if I'd had to go with like one, I'd probably take a Telecherry. I think it across the board delivers the functionality, the taste, and flavor.
Tell me something about. I'm moving around here, but I use Aleppo pepper a lot, and I like it a lot. But then I'm not certain that it any longer we're getting it from Syria. And the next thing that I noticed was like Aleppo style. What's the story with Aleppo pepper? Can a guy like me get real Aleppo pepper from Aleppo, or do I have to now work my way through Turkey or some other place?
To my knowledge, there isn't any commercially traded Aleppo from Aleppo at the moment. Mm-hmm. I know from contacts on the ground that they're reviving finally the ruins of Aleppo and the fields around it. Everything that's available, unless it's super old before the war, mm-hmm. and it's probably not that great at this point.
Right.
It's all coming from Turkey.
Got it. And is it not as good, the Aleppo?
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
I mean, don't get me. Yeah, those of us who had Aleppo before the war, you can argue about, the fine nuances. I think the Turkish one is fantastic.
I'm glad to hear it. When it comes to blending, which is part of your real kind of gift skill set, I'm going to ask you about, what's the basic rule that you need to know about blending? And I ask you in this context. I use Ras El Hanout, I use Baharat, I use Berbere. And they all feel to me that they're coming from a region. But in cooking school, I got in trouble once. And I got in trouble. My teacher was brilliant, by the way. He's written 17 cookbooks, including like the Bible on sauces. So he really knew what he was talking about. And at some test at some point, he said, what did you use to season the whatever I was making, the chicken or the duck? And I said, well, I've got some rosemary in there and some tarragon. He goes, yeah, can't do that. And I go, why? He goes, because you can't mix herbs de Provence with fine herb. So I guess my question, and I know that feels a little rigid because you're a guy that will throw a rosemary into a blend that's coming out of the Middle East. So what's the general thing that you kind of need to know about how you blend herbs together, spices together?
To me, there's no rules of right and wrong. I think that it's a trial and hopefully less error with time. It's about identifying what flavor profile you're trying to achieve. How do you achieve it? To me, it really doesn't matter if your sour comes from one ingredient or another. Not because I have no respect, I have the utmost respect for. As long as it tastes good and it feels good, then you should do whatever you want.
Right. But generally speaking, is it true that when it comes to blends, that they often originate from the same general vicinity?
I think they were. I think that, if you look at the history, the blends came from the region that they were grown or from the type of cuisine. I think the beauty of what we're doing nowadays is that you got to get good ingredients, good spices, and after that, you can do whatever you want. You personalize them to whatever you feel, wherever you live. There's no need to follow any rules.
What is blooming, and is it something I should be doing more of? Because I generally don't.
I think extracting the most flavor from spices is important, whether you want to toast them, whether you want to bloom them in fat, whether you want to infuse them. So I think it's just considering at what stage of the cooking process you're adding them to get the most out of that spice. So blooming is part of it.
Got it. Now I'm going to jump back because we spoke about Aleppo, but I hear you have a certain place in your repertoire for, I want to say, Ufra.
Yeah, Urfa, same Turkish.
Urfa.
Urfa, south of Turkey, the town of Urfa. One of the most unique chilies that I know, really dark, smoky, chocolatey, wine tanning characters with a nice kick to it, beautiful flakes. I would say a must in every kitchen, but then we're going to 6, not 5.
Well, again, I don't have hard and fast rules either.
Yeah, no. Urfa is really, it's amazing to see people who are new to Urfa, how they're like blown away the first time that they try it.
Yeah, I got to get my hands on that immediately because, yes, I just do. And what's your thing with tahini? Tell me about tahini. I don't use it nearly enough.
So tahini to me is what ketchup is to a lot of American kids. It's something that you grow up with. It's either made, incorporated into hummus. It's served as a sauce. It's served on its own. There's something, it's like I would dare to say getting close to the peanut butter concept because it is a seed butter at the end of the day.
Sure.
It's a little sweet. It's a little nutty. It's a little bitter. It's so fatty and rich that I am addicted to.
And you use it on everything, basically, is what you're saying.
I try to hide it because otherwise I will just put it in every dish. It's to the extent that we have a tahini sauce on the table 50-60% of the meals.
Understand. What do you top your, where have I found you, by the way? Are you in New York at this point?
I'm at Spice Lab, which is our production facility.
Oh, wow, right. What do you put on your pizza?
But usually nothing if it's good pizza.
Okay.
But if I were to add something to it, it'll probably be some chili flakes, and that's it.
And on the subject of food, and this is more of a game, and it'll help anybody. I roast a chicken every week.
Mm-hmm.
And aside from the lemon and garlic, there's going to be a dry, spice mixture of some sort. So, and as I said very early on, I use the spices as a way to create, distinction every time, that I make a chicken. So what are some of the things I want to what are some of the either blends or individual spices that are great with like a roasted chicken? What do you love?
I love the Persian dried lemons.
Oh, wow.
The limon mani that I either pulverize to powder and really coat the skin, or I'll just smash and put them in a pan, and then those juices, as I baste it, get that sour lemon note from them.
Nice.
Sliced garlic. Sometimes the cleaner, simpler, the better.
Yep.
Some savory leaves. It's great.
Okay, fine. Now let's do our work here. There's an event coming up. I want to say that the event is going to be on March 9th, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It's a Taste of Israel, a virtual wine tasting event. I spoke with our wine friend just yesterday, and you will be there as well. So before we even tell people how to go ahead and register for that event. What are you going to be doing at the? What's your involvement with the event?
So my involvement in the event is through Jewish National Fund, which
Correct.
is putting together this event, Jewish National Fund USA. Aside from being a huge fan of the work they do in Israel to really help the Israeli community in creating jobs and housing and water sources, I partnered with Jewish National Fund 3 years ago to build the Galilee Culinary Institute,
right,
in the north, where I'm from, an international facility that will teach and train students from all over the world, including Israelis, of course, in all aspects of culinary studies. So from the obvious cooking and baking through beer brewing, winemaking, cheese making, food science and technology. And in the last 3 years, as part of raising awareness for food in Israel and Israeli food and whatnot, I do a lot of these, sadly now online events when we cannot do in person. And one of those, which is March 9, which is Taste of Israeli Wines, is to showcase, the beauty of Israeli wines. I mean, growing up, there were two kinds of wines. There was red and white, and that's
right.
it. And also bringing my knowledge of food and spices, because oftentimes you have wine with food.
Yep.
And making that connection isn't always obvious, especially since we have the freedom nowadays, and it's no longer white with fish and red with meat. We can now swap however we want, and we can have a rosé in January or February. That's okay, that's allowed. And so I will be chatting with the team and the people attending on fun, maybe unexpected ways of savoring wines with different types of food, and giving them that freedom to do whatever they want.
Very good. Okay, so we'll just remind the folks that if they want to register for this thing, I will be there with you. It's jnf.org/Taste of Israel. So people would go to jnf.org/Taste of Israel if they want to sign up for the event, which is going to be on March the 9th, and you will be there. That'll be exciting. So that's good. Galilee, I just want to say before I forget that when we're able to travel again, I'm just putting in the self-invite right now. Galilee would be high on my list. I would love to help promote that cause. Let's tell people, Lior, before we go, you've written 3 books, I believe.
Right.
Where does one find those books? Are you an Amazon kind of, or are there other places, Google Books? Where do we find you?
So the books are there, but they're also on our website, which is laboiteny.com, LABOITENY.com. The books, the spices, the pantry items, the tahina is there. And also an open invitation really to sign up for our daily newsletter. So we're sending every day at 5 p.m. at least 1 recipe. Sometimes it's even 2. It's a great community, hundreds of recipes to date, and tips and tricks about cooking, and really a great way, if you like food, you like cooking, invite you to join us.
Yeah, that was my last question for you, is where people can go shop for your goods. So let's tell them again. It's Laboit, LABOITENY, Laboit,
LABOITENY.com.
Laboit. Yes, I have actually been in the shop, because I'm from New York City. I'm not there now, but I've actually been in the place. It's lovely and elegant and delicious to smell and to experience. Okay, excellent. Thank you. I don't want to over monopolize your time. You've been generous. We will see you on March the 9th at this lovely event. People should go on to ny.com, not NYC, right? It was NY?
No, just NY. Yep.
Yeah, beautiful. Laboit NY. Sign up and buy some stuff right there. And Lior Lev Sercarz. A treat to spend this time with you. I look forward, as my people like to say, next year in Galilee.
Amen to that.
Amen to that. All right, brother. Thank you very much. We'll be in touch.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Ciao, my
you.
pleasure. Well, there you have it for this evening, my friends. You got your wine and you have your spices. Thank you, gentlemen, for that. And what you're going to want to do now is sign up for the virtual wine tasting event to be held on March the 9th at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. jnf.org/Taste of Israel. jnf.org/Taste of Israel. And, you'll register. They will send you the link, and then you can get your hands on some of the wines that are going to be tasted that evening, and participate and learn more about spices and pairing and all that kind of great stuff. So I'll be there. Hope to see you there. And there you have it for this evening, episode 103, All You Can Eat. Back next week with you. And until then, my friends, remember, life is short, so never waste a meal.
I'm the Teflon Pan Man. I'm the Teflon Pan Man. Ain't nothing gonna stick on.